Hello my fragrance friends, it's Kat and I'm back today for another video where I compare original fragrances to their dupes or inspired buys and let you know which one I actually prefer. So I have done one of these videos before, which I'll have up in the cards, but essentially what I do is I've been taking either samples that I have of originals or full bottles of originals, like my Tihota, and I've been comparing it to the dupe and doing like a wear test and taking notes throughout the day. So I'll wear always the original on one arm, always the dupe on the other, so I don't get confused. And here are my results. I'm actually going to start with Indult Tihota because this is the fragrance that I was hoping would be the vanilla to end all vanillas. It's a very expensive French fragrance. It is niche. It is very well regarded. And I know that it is very yummy, but I do go quite nose blind to it. So that's why I've been like, it's broken my heart for a very long time. But what has reignited my interest in it is that a brand, a sort of dupe brand from Australia called Scent & Symphony brought out Fondant, which is a dupe for it. Some people go nose blind to this, so there must be a vanilla ingredient in this that makes people go nose blind. But I have to say, I am obsessed with this. It's my new favorite vanilla of all time. So I can understand why people love this, but I can actually smell this and it's a fraction of the price. So the day that I wore these side by side, I noticed that on application, the dupe smelt sweeter and the original on me smelt a little bit more musky. And that could be because the vanilla I go nose blind to. 4 hours later, it was the same. So the original was more of a skin scent, but the dupe actually projected vanilla a lot more. And then at the 8-hour mark, the dupe on me was way, way, way stronger. And the original just turned into like a sort of sweet, musky skin scent. So that is not everyone's experience with Tihota, but it's my experience, unfortunately. So there's something about me that goes nose blind to this. So this is one that I'm actually going to sell, which is really sad because I wanted to love it, but it wasn't meant to be. But if you do want Tihota at a very, very much more affordable price point, I highly, highly recommend this one from Scent & Symphony. It is an absolute stunner. Speaking of going nose blind to vanilla, I did actually try the Kayali Vanilla 28. I tried to find a dupe. Now I did actually use this one up because on me this was very, very woody and almost smelled like sawdust, like a dusty, woody vibe. And I was like, I don't know why everyone loves this as a vanilla because I just not am getting the vanilla. Now I did decide to try Eshal Vanilla by Paris Corner, and this is supposed to be a dupe for it. Now, when I put these side by side, I couldn't even do a wear test because this instantly went sawdusty on me. I could barely smell vanilla. This one definitely smelled very similar, where it had that sort of vanilla extract sort of opening, and it has that woody dustiness to it as well. But the vanilla stayed much longer. So I ended up just not even doing a full day wear test on this because this, I think I go nose blind a bit to this vanilla, but this was a really, really nice dupe. More of a rosy vanilla. I decided to compare Mancera's Roses Vanille to Paris Corner Emir Vanilla and Rose, which is a dupe for this. Now this was an interesting one because I didn't realize how sort of old-fashioned and dusty the original smelt compared to the dupe. So when I first applied it in the morning, the original was more powdery smelling. So it smelled a bit like old-fashioned baby powder almost. So it was a sweet rose baby powder. That was the main thing I could smell. The dupe had a lot more sweetness to it and smelt quite citrusy. So it was a powdery rose, but it had a little bit more brightness to it. At the 4-hour mark, the dupe was a lot stronger and a lot more vanilla forward than powdery. And in my opinion, I liked it more, whereas the original still had a sweet powdery rose note, but the vanilla was coming through. Interestingly enough, later that day, the original started smelling a lot like isopropyl alcohol to me. I don't know what happened to it, but it turned very sort of sharp alcohol note, which I didn't like. At the 13-hour mark, when I was taking these off, I could still smell the dupe, but I couldn't smell the original. So the dupe definitely outlasted the original, and I just think it was a brighter, nicer experience rather than that sort of old dusty powdery rose. I then decided to compare Nishane Ani, which is a very, very popular fragrance, to Bujairami Echoes, which is the dupe for it. So this is an Australian dupe brand, 45 bucks. I think this is in the hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So there is a big price difference here. This actually surprised me a lot. I think I only made notes up until about the 6-hour mark. But I was quite surprised with this. So when I first applied it, the dupe was a lot more citrusy and zingy. I sometimes describe Ani or Ani as being this really interesting one where it opens up. It almost has this sort of like effervescence, this sort of citrus effervescence with this sort of like green note to it. And then it settles down to this sort of ambery warm vanilla. So it's it's not at all linear. There's a lot going on. It develops throughout the day. It smells different throughout the day. It's a really interesting one. But that effervescent citrus scent was a lot more prominent and a lot more longer lasting in Echoes. So if you like that about Ani, Echoes actually has that a lot stronger, which I actually quite liked. 3 hours in, both of them were as strong as each other. The original smelt warmer vanilla, so if that's what you like about Ani, that one is stronger in the original, but the dupe still had a bit of a zing to it, which I still quite liked. So from a distance, they both gave a similar vibe, so the overall effect was very, very similar, but this was a little bit more that sort of zingy citrus, and the original was that warmer vanilla. They were both on at the 6 hour mark. I forgot to take notes after that, but what I did notice was the original was stronger and more sort of ambery and warm. So those sort of base notes that really sort of help it stick to the skin was a lot more prominent, whereas this started to fade down in a linear fashion. Again, there's different elements of these that I like. So I like the dry down of this, but I like that opening zinginess that lasts a lot longer. So I like them both. Lastly, I compared Wavechild by Room 15, which I have a travel size of, to Abiyedh Coral, I think it is. It's Lattafa anyway. So this is a watermelon fragrance. It's a bit of like this aquatic watermelon. And people say it's a dupe or inspired by Wavechild. Now, Wavechild to me, I've tried it before, and in warmer weather, it goes very sort of funky on me. There's some like suntan lotion, sort of coconut funkiness that I don't like. I found in the cooler weather that doesn't come through, so it's a lot easier to wear in the cooler weather, which was nice. But I feel like this scent profile is supposed to be for warmer weather. When I first applied this in the morning, the dupe was a lot fruitier, but it smelled a little bit more artificial, so artificial watermelon. And when I compared them both, I feel like the original, it almost didn't smell like watermelon compared to the dupe, because the dupe had so much watermelon in it that when I was like comparing them, I'm like, oh, there's a fruity element to the dupe, but I couldn't really smell the watermelon. At the 1 hour mark, the watermelon started coming through with the original. At the 3 hour mark, the dupe was very linear, so it smelt the same all the way through. It had this sort of aquatic watermelon scent that just sort of settled down. The original started smelling more salty and beachy. So I think this is where in summer, when I had like warmer skin, it almost started smelling a bit funky and a bit like sweat. Whereas in winter, it's had this sort of like fresh, sort of salty, beachy vibe to it. So I actually liked the scent profile in winter more. At the 5 hour mark, that sort of still carried on, but there was no watermelon scent left in the original. It had totally dissipated. And at the 10 hour mark, both of them turned to skin scents, and they were almost undetectable. So the dupe was a lot fruitier. If you like watermelon, this is the one to go for. Whereas the original, again, turned a little bit sort of salty, beachy, sweaty, aquatic, which was interesting. So this time around, there's been a bit of a mixed bag. I do think overall the dupes for me are winning, whether it's because I can actually smell the vanilla in it a little bit better. Like these two, the vanillas are just something that my nose can actually detect, or the dupes are just taking things and making it a little bit sort of, it's amplifying the elements that people like. So the watermelon in Wavechild, and toning down that sort of salty, maybe sweaty vibe to it. This is just really amplified it more. Vanilla and Roses is just that less powdery baby powder rose and more of this sort of fresh vanilla citrus rose, which is really nice. I think the only one that I'm sort of torn on is I like both of these for slightly different reasons. I like Echoes because it's more effervescent. It's got that citrus vibe that I do really like, but I also really love that warm, rich, sort of vanilla dry down that Nishane Ani has. So I feel like for these, I would use them in different occasions, but ultimately I would reach for this one more just because the price difference is so extreme that I've even made a dent in this bottle already, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to repurchase it, it's so expensive. Whereas $45, I'm like, yeah, let's just overspray until the cows come home, who cares? Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that. I'd love to know if you've tried these fragrances and what you think. And I also have another video like this that I'll have on the screen. So thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.